I love the sound of that more and more the way you do this. I don't realize how much that pumps me up. It's like the music, the lights, the camera, the action. Oh, wait, where is my camera action? Oh man, I'm gonna have to grab it. It's so cool. But anyways, guys, welcome back to another conversations. Man, I want to find that. That's really fun. Anyways, welcome back. I'm gonna say lights, camera, let's go to another discussion in our Champion Reads book club. Is we're going to be talking a little bit more about this awesome book right here, Leadership and Self-Deception. In fact, why don't I just bring it up on the screen? And joining us today, of course, is the co-host and creator and also discussion extraordinaire. Let's give you some really cool names. The amazing Mr. Ian Sturmer. What's going on, Ian?
Hey, extraordinaire. I love that. I think I'm going to put that on a business card.
We should. Yeah, that's definitely a good one.
It'll replace the freelance philosopher I have on there now.
Freelance philosopher. Oh, man. Well, I'm having a good time, and I'm really excited about just, again, diving deeper into this. And you and I both are those individuals who really enjoy this book, once a year at least. And there's just so much to learn from it and gain from it. And when you spend time with people who are in the know talking about leadership and self-deception, but most importantly, the concept about being in the box, we're going to dive deeper into that conversation a little bit today and explain like really what it looks like or what it feels like or what it means to be in the box and why we are in the box. We'll get to the why and the reasoning behind it. And then we'll also talk a little bit about, how does being in the box affect our lives a little bit more? And just forewarning to everyone, we are not drinking smoothies this time, so I will not choke myself out of this conversation. But we're definitely excited to continue that. But why don't we just kick it off and ask the question? Why are we in the box? If we want to dive into that.
Yeah, I was thinking about that some, and the truth is, we're born in the box. The box is kind of how, our personal perception of things, which we talked some about last week. We only really know what we can see, hear, feel, taste, touch. Everything is about internally ourselves. When we're born as babies, we quickly learn that if we cry, then we'll get held, fed, changed, whatever we need. Later on, we learn that when we smile, we get a positive response from people. Later on, we realize when we bring flowers to a girl, we hope to get a positive response from a girl. So when we do these things, the question is, are we doing them because we want this girl to be happy? Or are we doing them because we want to receive something from it? And that's kind of the idea to me of the box. When we're focusing what we're going to get out of it, and what we think we deserve, we're in the box. And from birth, that's how we experience life, is being in the box and manipulating our box and our actions to get the results we want in the box. And really, that's our whole life until we learn that there is a box and we're in it, and there's actually something outside of that box. I won't give any spoilers on that part yet.
I love the way that you put that, and great way to kick this off. We definitely are born in the box, and so without diving too quickly into the conversation, I also recognize that maybe something we didn't bring up last time is it's okay. Like, first of all, the box is a good evaluation tool, and it's a great observation, and also it's an experience. And we can't be perfect, and that's not what the box is all about. It's not about being perfect. It's not about a regimented way of living so that you never make mistakes. The box is a continuous reminder. It's a constant evaluation tool and resource for us to see and observe, and also to recognize where we're at. And I think that's so valuable. And then even at the core of life itself, where we as individuals, as innate human beings, at the nature of life, that the box was created before we even arrived. And it is as we are, we're able to grow and learn within those constructs. Another version, or I guess another take on the box theory, is, you know, the lens or maybe even the framework of particular um, observances. And what that means is, you know, you can look at anything with a different type of lens. You know, people mostly refer to like, oh, do you have rose colored glasses, right? They think that you're, you know, life is sunshine and rainbows if you look through rose colored glasses and you just don't see the bad in things. But that's one example of a lens. You could also use the lens of a microphone or micro glass, or what is that? Is a
Microscope.
microscope, that's the one, or even a telescope or whatever it
Yeah.
is. But you can dive deeper into things, into the details of things, by using a different lens and a different scope. And then the same thing too with frames. You could put things in a framework, and here with the box theory, we're literally taking a framework of a box, something that can be entered into and exited out of, in order to, you know, visually see and observe and be aware. So it's a great resource and a great tool. And once you're, you know, diving into this book, you're reading the story and you're in the know per se to the conversation and the theory of the box, you now have a better understanding of how to observe and to take control of your life in a way that you really want to have a better understanding of how this works. So I love that you brought that example up, and I just wanted to add some context for our listeners as well, and for those participating in the show. But yeah, so let's talk about it. Let's dive into the weeds a
Okay.
little bit.
I wanted to carry through on something you said there. Another great book, one of my favorites, is called Gaining Control by Robert Bennett.
Yeah, that's a good
And
book.
one of the first concepts he talks about in that, he calls a belief window. And I know I've talked about that with you before, but the idea is that you've got this piece of glass in front of your face, and everything you experience, you write on that glass. You write, you know, people with red hair drive too fast. People that have green cars cut me off in traffic. And your experiences you write on there, and then that filters everything you see. And some of that's good because we need to make generalizations to be able to get through life. Some of that's bad because one particular incident can discolor everything for us. But once we realize that there's that piece of glass in front of us, and what we see is not actually what's there, what we see is what's filtered through our perceptions, then we can start to look at it realistically and see a more true picture of what's happening. And that's the same idea with the box. Once we realize there's a box there, then we can deal with it. Then we can understand what's going on. I talked to you in the green room before with a simple analogy. If you're lost in the woods, the best strategy is probably not to start walking. Maybe you want to figure out where you are and where you need to get to, and then you can start walking. But if you just start taking action and moving without knowing where you are, you don't know your situation. You know, you stand at least a 1 in 4 chance of, well, maybe you stand a 1 in 4 chance of going the right direction and a 3 in 4 chance of being in the wrong direction.
As a fellow navigator myself, I love that example because, you know, one of my just a little off topic,
Yeah.
but in relation to that is, one of my favorite shows growing up was the show that Bear Grylls was on. And they would take him by helicopter and drop him into a random wilderness, and he would essentially, with his camera crew, run around, and he would show you how he would survive and exit. And usually number one is finding, you know, resources nearby to survive. Number two is shelter. Number three is, you know, getting oriented and trying to find a place to decide where you're going to go, all within the environment within you're in. And you're absolutely right. Like you've got to be able to recognize, and this is really what kind of a tool that this can be for. And I love that example because, you know, you definitely need to get a grasp of where you're at, what's around you, what it is, what your environment. I love the glass wall example too, because that reminded me of two different movies. The one is, I forget what it's called. It's that Disney movie, and each experience is in a bulb, and then that bulb is a memory, and that memory is some part. I forget what that one's called, but there's that one, and then there's, yeah, I know, right? Cartoons, right?
Yeah.
All the women are very they love that movie because it's about understanding your feelings, and I agree, it's a really important, powerful concept. But what it really makes me think of is the Matrix, and here's why. There's a natural innate coding to our bodies and how we react. And your example of we were born in the box and we grow up recognizing facial features and experiences and expressions and stuff like that. Essentially, the same thing, with the Matrix. There's this coding in our life, has things that we get to unlock and see and observe and be aware of throughout every little experience. And it's almost like a game. It's almost like a level enhancer. It's part of our experience. So not to get too geeked out or nerdy or deep into a tangent of conversation on that, but it just did remind me to give, I guess, people some context of what we might be discussing here. But essentially, it's just a box.
Yep. It's a box. We're in it, and that's what we can see and experience. But yeah, that first thing is recognizing you're there, knowing that you're in it. Even more than the struggle to get out of it is just understanding where you are. Because sometimes that's the most important thing, is to know where you are. So not to get myself or you in trouble, we're both married. Yes. And how much of a relationship with your wife is knowing where she is in that in a particular situation. That's the most important thing, is understanding what she's thinking, understanding the situation, maybe understanding the situation I'm in is the most important thing. I have heard the advice as well that it's like when you're pulled over by a police officer when you're driving. You look straight forward, you answer in simple yes and no questions until you know exactly what the problem is.
Yeah.
But wait and find out where you're at. If you start jumping into, I don't have a good example, but generic, I start jumping into why I wasn't really at fault for something. And halfway through it, I find out I'm admitting a fault she didn't even know about and a problem I'm bringing up, and she was talking about something else. I didn't take time to find out where I'm at. What am I really in trouble for? So I can find out how to get out of it. So I'm repeating myself, but yeah, that first step, know you're in the box and know what that means. So what does that mean to us when we are in a box?
Absolutely.
I'll pause and let you take it over.
No, absolutely. I love your examples, and yeah, we will get in trouble as husbands and men to try and decide to understand what they're going through. But absolutely, I mean, to any and all cases, it's just very vital to have that perspective and to understand what really is going on before you dive in. And again, there's probably healthier and better tactics and strategies, or even just samples of what to do and how to react or act. And I think it's powerful. But in the book of Leadership and Self-Deception, the Arbinger Institute talks. Well, first of all, you follow the storyline of Bud and his surroundings, his work environment, also his wife Nancy, and so much more. And it gets into that sort of marital conversation and expectations on both hands, and why it's important. And there's a part in there too where as Bud is being introduced or interviewed by his boss and so forth, it gets into this evaluation of once you start to see and recognize where you're at in the box or out of the box and why it's driving that, there's obviously going to be steps to get out of it. But before we jump to conclusions and try to get to the how do I get out of it? How do I get out of it? It's understanding the why and understanding the circumstance to help you better see an exit, and also to find ways to either remain out of the box or to have solutions for when you are in the box. And so we're excited to get into more about that. But there's a great example we wanted to talk about today about the conversation in their heads, right? of what's going on when Bud and his wife Nancy are both in bed and the baby starts to cry, I believe.
Right.
I can
Yeah,
bring up.
I'll let you look for that graphic when the baby starts to cry, and I guess it's the boss, David and Nancy. Sorry, getting all the names straight.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Bud's the
So,
guy that interviews
yeah.
David. David's the one with the problem. No, I'm just kidding. He's in the
Yeah.
box, and David's wife is Nancy. There you go.
Yeah. So they're sleeping in bed, and the baby starts to cry. And as the baby's crying, David is thinking, Nancy should get up and get the baby because I'm tired. And we talked about self-betrayal last time. Self-betrayal is when you're doing something contrary to what you know you should do for someone else. We all know we should get up and take care of the baby. But it's 2 a.m. and none of us want to get up and take care of a baby. So David here starts to say, well, I'm the victim. I'm the one that can't sleep. I've got to be up early in the morning. I had a long day. Life is so unfair to me that if I had to do all this work, I'm hardworking. I'm an important person. I'm a breadwinner. And I took care of the baby 2 weeks ago. So it's not fair. I have to do it every couple of weeks. I have to wake up. Mm. I felt that way before. And I'm sensitive because I care about my baby and my baby needs to be held. I'm a great dad. I'm a good husband. I provide. And, David or myself see ourselves as this great person. Everything's so unfair that we're having to deal with. And it's all because Nancy is so selfish to be sleeping next to me. When there's that simple act of her getting up and holding the baby would help me out so much. So why isn't she caring about me? Why isn't she thinking about this? She's just, to read the graphic, she's just lazy. That's the problem. She's too lazy to help me. She doesn't care that I'm tired. She doesn't appreciate that I worked really hard and took 15 phone calls yesterday. It's just, she's insensitive. She doesn't care about me. She's only worried about her own feelings. You know what? I think she's awake. That faker is just pretending to sleep to make me get up instead. How dishonest is that, to lay here pretending to be asleep when she could be getting up? I'm not pretending to be asleep. I'm evaluating my life at this point, which is important. So I'm not a faker. Mm-hmm. And it makes her just a lousy mom and wife if she's not willing to do these things. And forgive me for expounding on a story here.
Absolutely, no, that's perfect.
But if an interesting thing about this is all of this takes place in his head. And if he gets up grumbling, complaining in his mind, and all these thoughts about his wife, and holds the baby till the baby goes to sleep and lays down again, that's all in the box. If he looks at his wife and says, she had a hard day, she looks so beautiful sleeping, she needs the rest, let me help out, and he gets up and takes care of the baby and then goes back to sleep, the exact same action happened both times. If Nancy is asleep, she has no idea, if he doesn't say anything, that those two different stories happened. And we use the word mindset a lot, and there's a lot of different definitions, but I'm going to put mindset idea into this box. Being in the box is more about the mindset you have than it is about the actions you're actually taking. David can get up and take care of the baby entirely inside the box or entirely outside of the box, depending on the mindset he has. But that mindset difference can make a huge difference in his life, even though the baby and Nancy may never even know about it in that time. So maybe a first way to look at the box with that is, what does it mean to me to be inside the box? And how does that affect my life, even if we're not looking at the people we're interacting with yet and how it affects them? But how does it affect ourselves to be in the box and grumbling, or out of the box and wanting to serve?
This put my brain into a contemplative state of just oops, I keep doing this. I hit something on my keyboard and my dictation opens up and then it listens to everything I say. It put me in such a contemplative state because, man, I've been there. I know this scenario, and if it's not the baby, it's something else, right? And again, I think many people can probably relate with this example, but I tend to believe that I have the purest intentions and that I'm the nicest human being, which I am, right? And
Of
which we
course.
are. But when it comes down to it, like I believe this thing about me that it almost gets to it's like taking one of those pins and just poking a nerve or poking your skin when something seems out of alignment, or it appears and seems that people think you're out of alignment from that particular person or being that you believe you are. And what, and again, I'm going to write down a bunch of notes and tactics and strategies for next time when we're going to talk about how to get out of the box, and we'll come up with some really cool ways to do that. But essentially you start to think and you start to create solutions for yourself. But I've found that the purpose of the box is again awareness, recognition, and observation. But with that being said too, it's a great understanding that being in ourselves, like thinking so much about ourselves, can overcomplicate situations. Again, like you well described here, was you put yourself as the victim first. Well, first of all, that's no place to be. Second, you never want to be the victim. And third, second, first, and then third, is that you do have this belief about yourself or what you're doing and how you're acting in this role. And then, most importantly is you feel like maybe the other person's not doing their job. And if you were to get up, you're probably enabling them to continue down that spiral path of darkness, doom that they're already in, because that's what you think about the other person in this context. And so you put your foot down in defiance, right? To make sure and focus on principles, right? But at the end of the day, it's like there is a point and purpose and place for the reasoning in which why we're in the box. And I think you hit it on the head. And number two is, it comes from a belief of what other people are doing. And that might be a place of insecurity. That might be a place of unknowing. It might be a place of deciding and understanding where you're at in that process. But yeah, I just wanted to add to that. I think that there's a lot of things that can come from it, but ultimately why we're in the box is, possibly because we need to be in the box, but in that moment we can find ways out.
Yeah. I love that. And, being in the box is that, well, one, sometimes we do need to be in the box because we need to understand our own feeling. If we're never understanding we're in the box, we don't realize there is a box and there's a way out of it and all of that. But a lot of it fits into a justification of things. And one of my favorite philosophers / comedians named Emo Phillips has a line. He said, I was walking down the street one day and I found this wallet. And at first I was going to keep it instead of returning it. But then I thought, how would I feel if I lost $500? Then I realized I would want to be taught a lesson. So it's easy to justify that, it's okay, I'm doing this. And even if these intentions start out good. Another story that I've heard years ago and love, and it's kind of more of a parable because I don't know if it's based on a true story, but there's a man who gets a job and he wants to support his family. And I think all of us talk about what's your why when you're working? And it's my family. I want to support my family. I want to provide for them. So he wants to provide for his family. So he works hard and he has to work longer hours. And he says, pretty soon your family starts to see you as just this grumpy old guy who works all the time. And then pretty soon you start thinking, well, why doesn't my family appreciate me? I'm putting all this effort in to provide for them, to give them the things that I never had as a child, to be a great husband and father. But they just don't appreciate me. But, the people in my office, I just got a bunch of awards from them, and they're congratulating me on closing this deal and finishing this project. And these people at work really appreciate me. And these people at home, even when I try and talk to them now, they don't want to talk to me because they think I'm not worth their time, or they think I'm not interested. And your perspective changes from initially very altruistically wanting to help your family. And pretty soon your motivation is you want to get the admiration of your coworkers, the accolades from somebody else. And now your family, that was your why, in reality is your hindrance. I got to go to that birthday party, but I can close the deal if I don't go to it. Well, I love my kid, but in my mind, I'm thinking about that deal I got to work on. So that perspective can easily shift, even if we started outside the box to inside the box. Because again, what we see, hear, feel, taste, touch, on the surface at least, looks like my family doesn't love me and the people in my office do love me. And I'm sure we all have stories of how that story ends really badly with somebody losing their family because they get too involved with people in their work. So even out of the box can slide into the box quite easily when you don't understand where you are and what your real priorities, and you start getting that self-deception of not treating people the way that you should, and you start treating yourself the way you want to be treated. Is that the copper rule? Treat yourself the way you want to be treated.
Yeah, because the platinum is much better,
yeah.
right?
Right. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, I want to add another teammate and producer into the conversations. Welcome, Lauren. We're glad you're here, and you'll need to unmute if you want to jump in. But just real quick, I love this, and a few key words and topics come to mind. And keywords, obviously, there's this idea of love languages, and don't you know my love language, and understanding me, and you expect other people to look at you in a certain way, the way you want to be seen, but it's not really about that. It's more of about what needs to be done and just to do it. And it eliminates a lot of other factors. I mean, the box is very simple, and it allows us to really create a relationship within ourselves and how we react. I mean, the baby's crying, just the first response shouldn't be, boom, she should get up and get the baby. It should be, oh, the baby needs help. And that should be, what we should, but without shooting on everything, it should be more about a conversation to yourself about what needs to be done. And I think that's interesting. The other word that comes up is toxicity, which is a very, I don't know. It's a buzzword these days. Toxic. That's that person's toxic. But the toxicity in that thinking and that mindset is that it is so expectant of others rather than expectant of yourself, which again, at the end of the day, I mean, gold, bronze, silver, gold, platinum rule, whatever it is, at the end of the day, I've always heard that you've got to take care of number one. And number one isn't a selfish thing. It's looking yourself in the mirror and taking care of yourself as somebody who's able, capable, and also recognizing personal awareness and so forth, which I think that's become my buzzword in this episode is awareness, because I definitely feel that observation, that peripheral, also that if you guys remember the example from last time, the ability to see yourself from behind, bird's eye view, and in the future, very, very powerful in this aspect. So there's a few thoughts there, but
I was going to jump in.
Please do.
In the book, I just brought it up because I'm not good at remembering word for word. but it says it's easy to get caught up in the endless doing of work and lose sight of who is at the other end of our transaction. Managers, even seasoned ones who pride themselves on their results orientation, can lose their focus seeing interactions between people as tasks. Another workplace reality is that we simply do not gel with or even like some of our coworkers. All the more reason to see past their humanness. But we define self-deception as not knowing and resisting the possibility that one has a problem. So it's, it goes along with what you're saying with the toxicity nowadays. Like, they're toxic, I'm not, right? Like, it's their problem that I don't like them because they behave this way and this way and this way, instead of looking at ourselves, being like, I can look past that and still see that they're human and treat them respectfully, instead of seeing them as their problems.
I like that. It's recognizing, again, ourselves versus other people. There's an analogy that, John's a sport racing guy, running guy. And there's two ways to win a race. You can run faster than the other person, or the other person can run slower than you. And to many people, if you cross the finish line first, you've won. But if the person you're running against happens to trip and you get your slowest time ever, but you cross the finish line first, did you really win? You might have got a medal for it, or somebody put a ribbon around your neck, but that's not the same kind of a win. So a lot of people say, you know what, maybe I can't be great, but if I can make that person look bad, or I can think of that person's weaknesses, in comparison, I'll be a lot better. So I can be happy with that. I don't have to work hard. I feel good about myself because that loser over there, they took the last Snicker bar and didn't let me take it. And that was really rude of them. So they're a bad person.
Right.
I don't have to think that I would have taken it.
Inside the box, that's exactly what it is. We're comparing ourselves and trying to make ourselves feel and look better than others, right? Instead of allowing them to shine in their light and us shine in our light. Yeah.
I love that. I just wanted to add a little bit to that. It just, again, there's so much like personal evaluation approach to this. And again, standing in your light versus creating boundaries versus focusing on where you stand versus where they stand. Again, at the end of the day, there is a value system that comes into this, but I think all of us can agree that we all want to be good people, that we all want to be helpful, that we all want to be recognized. I think that validation and appreciation are some of the most powerful rules in the love language of affirmation, right? And so it's just it's so powerful to think that way. But again, there's an even bigger why than the intrinsic thoughts of I am a good person, I am the provider, I am this and that and whatever. There's a bigger evaluation than that. And I think just digging deep into that is really helpful. And again, we're going to get into, I keep wanting to get into strategies and tactics, but we'll get into that next time, guys. But just knowing the why behind it is very, very powerful. And it does, like Ian said and Warren said, it affects us. Like it can roll on for years and how people do stuff. And I'm not saying like it's the people hold grudges or they feel certain ways about certain people, or just somehow that these emotions and these thoughts and feelings stack on belief systems about other people. And, at the end of the day, it does affect us. It creates a festering wound that will continue to grow if we're not healed and if not attended to. And that is just an example that creates a little bit more solutions for others.
Yeah. I was just kind of reminding me, I was talking, sorry, Lauren, talking with a lady a while ago, and it's an older lady. And she was saying that she felt like every day she would tell her husband, please wipe the mirror after you brush your teeth. And every day he would smile and say, "I'm sorry, dear, I will work on that." And eventually he passed away. And she said that after that, every day she went into the bathroom and she had to wipe the mirror. Um, and she finally realized she was the one that was making the mirror dirty and not him. But every day he would just say, "I'm sorry, I'll work on it." He knew exactly what was going on, but he recognized that he had to be out of the box and care about her feelings. And if he went, "Hey, I did it, it's your fault," that would not have lifted up the relationship. That would not have solved the problem of the mirror. It would have opened more problems. And when she finally realized that the problem was herself, not him, um, she was able to really look back on her husband with so much more love, and build that love even greater in that relationship in her heart. Um, so much more than if he had corrected her and they moved past it and went on with their lives and lived happily ever after, would not have had the same effect as his loving acceptance of blame for something he wasn't doing, um, and showing that love for her. So I love how that really illustrates the simple nature of being in and out of the box, and how that affects ourselves later on, and how much it meant to her when she finally realized what was going on, when she finally was able to see outside of the box, outside of the mirror, to what had happened with that.
That reminds me, uh, between Ty, my husband, and I used to always get on him for the tone of voice he used. I'd say, "You just sound so rude when you say that to me." I said, "I'm not being rude. I didn't mean it rude." I was like, "But you need to change your tone of voice before you say it to me. You should stop and think about it before you say it." And I was like, it was him. It was him. Like, that's what would trigger me to get annoyed or mad. And then I was like, I need to accept and maybe think that he is not mad at me. It's just he said something, or, there's other things on his mind. It's not that he's mad at me. I interrupted him at a certain moment, but for a long time, I'd always just get on him, like, change your tone of voice. Like, don't say it that way to me. Can you just talk nicer? And it was just a battle until I finally realized that I was part of that problem. And he eventually said to me, "I just get annoyed when you always say that to me, because I'm just talking, or I'm just making a statement." And I had to realize that I was provoking some of that. So,
It's so annoying to find out I'm the problem and not the people I'm blaming.
yeah. Or it's like, why do I have to think that he's saying it mean to me, or he's directing it at me? And sometimes he's like, "I was just thinking out loud." I'm like, "Well, I thought you were saying that directed to me, And I was in the box because everything was about me, and why was he attacking me?" So, one of the many things. It's not always perfect, right? But I've come a long ways with it. And we have a happier marriage.
That's a huge part of it, is realizing that there's not necessarily an answer, a solution, an end goal. And the book talks about this. It's not, are we in the box or out of the box? It's that we're in the box and out of the box. And as we realize that, recognizing that times we're in the box, times we're out of it, we're trying to move out of it, but it's always in a constant flux.
Yeah, they call it, isn't it like the dancing of the boxes? Kind of dance in and out of them at times.
I need to be a better dancer.
And if you're an athlete like me, you treat the box like one of those ladders, those step ladders, and you're just like in and out as fast as you possibly can. Not that we need to remain in the box is more than we have to, or that we should. Two great observational examples of this is if you ever watch the TV show Survivor, and the drama that's created because people just, one, they're starving, 2, they're exhausted. 3, they're cranky and lack of sleep. And 4 is because they're just humans. And the way that people come across in situations and conversations are exactly like Lauren described. You know, you see where that person could have communicated better, but at the same time too, it's like, you just got to be open. Like the people who are ultimately don't take offense from the get-go are typically those who go further in the game. Another great, I mean, not great, I don't approve of this, is, trashy dating shows. Like when you watch that human psychology come through in a lot of social environments, you observe it from afar. And, it should teach us a thing or two about communication, but it usually doesn't, because we usually gravitate towards the same habits. And the more you listen to it, it becomes part of your subconscious mind. But anyways, I just thought that was a funny example. But no, I find a lot of value in this conversation. And again, I think just wrapping this up is that we do get affected by it. It's okay. The box isn't necessarily the most evil thing in the world. It's just knowing what to do, why it's there, and how to exit is really what's most important. And it's a constant dance. It's a relationship, ebb and flow, part of your life, and you're going to have to work on it every single day. And in this book, he takes us through the examples of I guess David and all of his back and forth and so much more. And I think that that's just a realization again to focus on what is where our head should be at and our thoughts can be. And again, I think what this all leads to is contentment, fulfillment, validation, and even just a greater sense of love and appreciation, because we do need the box in order to experience maybe those difficult, frictionless times in our lives, so that we have those experiences and those memories and the ability to learn. Without opposition, there's no way of us growing and learning and progressing anyways. So it's just a powerful principle and a tool. And I'm grateful for the lesson. It continues to remind me, but also that it magnifies into greater topics and understanding.
That just as you were talking, it reminded me one of the first things it says in the book is, I guess, his bud is called into his boss's office, and he's kind of excited about how good he's doing and just hired and how he's going to be a star. And the first thing his boss says is, "Bud, you have a problem." What do I do? What do you mean I have a problem? You don't even know me yet. But that first realization, we've all got a problem. We're all in the box. And the dating shows, I have to jump back to that. The dating shows are great because they show that guy's box is so much worse than mine. So I'm actually not doing that bad now. I'm not like that guy. And maybe sometimes that box is a protection. When there's something a little bit too emotional going on outside, we can kind of retreat a little bit. Maybe we need that little space to help us out until we can realize realize first we can get out of it. Then we can realize how to get out of it. But just that knowledge that it's possible. Yes, we're here, and it's possible to get out. Once we comprehend those two things, then we're ready to start working on next week's discussion. How do we actually do that?
Yeah.
Which I think we have endless material for. We're super excited to dive into that. And then just to kind of wrap this up too, I'll let Lauren add anything if she'd like. But the conversation. I mean, when you are constantly at your best, meaning you're portraying this, I am an enthusiastic, exciting, fun person to be around, and you're constantly exuding and propelling that to people. In a moment of weakness or in a moment of passing, it's really easy to miscommunicate. It's really easy to misbehave in a contextual environment. And it's also really easy to just be back in the box. Like the door is so open and fluid that it sometimes is almost unrecognizable about how quickly it is to pass from in and out of the box. And you know what? That's a process you get to work through, that you get to learn about yourself. But again, I love that your example, Ian, from the book is that you've got a problem. Like recognizing that there is something that we can always improve on and work on, and it's from other people's perspectives as well. But again, that at the end of the day is an invitation, right, to allow our in the box actions and how we can use it to improve ourselves as a result of being out of the box as often as we can and as fluidly as we can. Those conversations in the dating shows are hilarious because they're so presenting their best selves up front that the moment they drop back or let their guard down and they sound or come off as not who they are, that becomes the trigger or the light bulb that someone says, oh, that's a red flag, or oh, I didn't expect that from someone. They're not my Prince Charming or whatever. And it's just, there's so much that goes into those conversations that are great. So again, we're not encouraging you to go watch trashy dating shows. There's probably a better use of your time, like reading this book right here. But we're excited about it nonetheless. And so next time we will talk about the strategies, tactics, and conversations around getting out of the box and some ways to do so. And again, if you guys pick up a copy of this book, again, it's $9-10 usually on Amazon. You can find a brand new copy probably for $20. But if you pick up a copy of this, they've got tools, resources, different guidelines, and even as we showed earlier, diagrams and photos and things that will help you to see and understand this a little bit better. But again, just because you're in the club, meaning you know what the box is, doesn't give you the right to tell other people and talk to other people about them being in the box. Okay. It's an invitation.
Don't suggest it.
Yeah, exactly. Because it makes you sound like alien, like unworldly. Like, what are you talking about? And there's another concept in this life that we're very familiar with, especially in the entrepreneurial world or the creative world, which is out of the box thinking. And though it's similar, it's a different concept. And then you don't want to muddy the water on both of those things because they have two different meanings from two different worlds. And so again, don't mix other conversations up with what other normal people think, because we all know that in the box versus out of box thinking is a completely different concept. And but they have relations as well. But anyways, any last words from you guys? Otherwise, we'll close this out and we'll get ready for next week.
We're good.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you again for preparing this conversation and for leading the discussions. Lauren, thank you for joining us. You're awesome, and we appreciate everyone. And again, if you're a member of Champion Circle, or if you are listening to this and participating in our book club, following along at home, first of all, we encourage you to reach out to us if you have feedback, questions, or anything from the discussion topics that you'd like us to cover. First of all, we'll feature the question, and two, we'll answer it from our perspectives. Please send us an email to team@mychampionscircle.com, and we'll be able to answer any and all questions there. Number two is, if you'd like to join in on the conversations, we will eventually go live with some of these so you can participate in the social media realm, or we do have room to bring on a few guests to be here in studio with us and to have these conversations and contribute to the discussions about the books. And so as we dive deeper into those, continue to reach out to us and allow us to pour into you as a part of this. But this is the Champion Reads book discussions and book club from Champion Circle, and we encourage you to participate. We encourage you to read along and to dive deeper in some of the books that we have. So with that being said, guys, we appreciate you. We love you both, and thank you for your conversations today, and we'll see you next time with our book club discussions.
Thank you very much.